Generally speaking, the purpose of towers in a tower defense game is to, well, provide defense in some form, but that doesn't mean they have to provide it in the form of damage. Sometimes it might be status effects, like slowing down the enemy. In Bloons Tower Defense, starting with the 4th game specifically, you have a tower called the Banana Farm. This tower provides you with extra income every round, and that's it. So that means the Banana Farm is completely passive to the balloons, as it never interacts with them in any way. This is also true of the village. Now it does have one upgrade that allows it to attack balloons, but if you avoid getting that, this tower also doesn't interact with the balloons in any way. At least not in the 5th game. Instead, it actually provides a bunch of different buffs to the other towers that you place in its range. This can allow a 0-0 Super Monkey to absolutely destroy a ceramic balloon when normally it struggles a pretty good bit to one. Now I know you aren't stupid, because you watch my videos, so it's pretty obvious why I'm saying all this. I want to see just how far I can go in BTD5 using only the Banana Farm and the Monkey Village. But of course it can't just literally be them. So to actually pop the balloons, I'm also going to have to use road items. Now generally, these should never be your primary form of defense because they lose you money every time you use them. Even on easy mode where they're cheapest, every pile of road spikes you use loses you $15. So I'm really hoping that using farms for their income generation could potentially help me offset these losses enough for me to actually beat the game. And I'm starting on medium mode because I've actually already beaten the game on easy mode without any towers, albeit at the time I did use double cash because without it, it would have been literally impossible. I also want to thank this person who corrected a mistake I made in that video. At the time, I incorrectly believed that enabling the Spike Factory Specialist building would allow the road spikes I placed down to pop 50% more balloons, but it actually only affects spike piles that are dropped directly by a Spike Factory. Now the reason I believe this is because I was getting extra pops from my road spikes, it just had nothing to do with the Spike Factory Specialist building at all. Instead, it's actually because I have my Monkey Lab maxed out, and the popping power upgrade specifically provides 40% more popping power than normal, and for some reason, this actually does affect your road spikes. But if you've been watching the gameplay footage, you'll notice that each pile of road spikes is not popping 14 balloons like you might expect from a 40% increase. Instead, it actually gives you a 40% chance of your popping power doubling, so that means of course a 40% chance that the pile might pop 20 balloons instead of just 10. But if you watched that original video, this is why the odds weren't as good as I expected, because I was getting a 40% chance instead of the 50% that I thought I should be. But at least the Spike Factory Specialist building does give you one free pile of road spikes every round, so I'm still using it. And I'm sorry for a noticeable difference in the audio quality of the mic. I actually had to switch mid-video, so hopefully it doesn't affect things too much. But the first thing I foresee being an issue here is the fact that the Banana Farmer is actually a special agent, which means that once you've used enough, you unlock the pro version, and this actually spits out banana peels onto the track, which definitely is not passive because they send balloons backwards. So that means I really can't let the balloons get too far down the track, otherwise I'll fail the challenge. Now, you might be thinking, well, just sell this thing because of course you can collect them with your mouse, but unfortunately when you're holding a pile of road spikes in your hand, you actually can't collect the bananas, so I kind of need it there, otherwise I would be losing most of the income generation. Because if you don't collect them, the bananas disappear after just a few seconds. Another thing that I quickly learned is you really want to leave a small buffer of cash even when you can afford a farm, because it'd be very easy to overspend and then not be able to afford to defeat the entire round if you didn't. And this of course would be a problem because even though I have all those extra lives, again, I can't let any balloons reach the end of the track, although this certainly got dangerously close given how big that range is on the Banana Farmer. On round 28, I had to face leads for the first time, which requires you to use exploding pineapples, and this is the only time I'll be using them is when I have to pop leads, which you can probably tell why. They're pretty annoying trying to time them with the balloons, and I kept on missing them at first and wasting money, but also I almost failed the challenge right here because look at how close those black balloons were to actually getting hit by bananas, and thankfully the banana peels actually can't affect lead balloons, those just destroy them instead, so I didn't fail here either. After a little while I did develop a sort of strategy. I would try to estimate how many road spikes I was going to need based on the RBE of the round, and if you don't know, RBE means red balloon equivalent, so it tells you how much damage you actually have to deal to beat that round. And then when I actually had to deal with lead balloons, I would use this loop right here and just put down a bunch of pineapples right in this spot so it could destroy them all. But on my first attempt to beat this round, I got a little too distracted trying to pop all the leads, and this ended up allowing a few of the banana peels to actually send balloons backwards, which means I'm going to have to restart the round. And yeah, this is going to be pretty annoying to deal with, I can already tell. But at least I can say that on my next try, I played a bit smarter and cleared the round without any issues. Then I failed again on round 39, but this time it wasn't a lack of focus, but rather a lack of fundage, which means I'm already going to have to sell one of my farms. So that's what I did. making sure to wait until they were done producing income so that way I could also earn some money this round from the farm, and then I got super lucky that this blue balloon just barely avoided being hit by any of the peels. But since I beat the round with some extra money, I did replace the farm I had to sell with a 1-0, which isn't as good, but at least it's something. And round 40 doesn't have as high of an RBE as round 39 did, so I should still have enough money to afford all the road spikes I need as well. But unfortunately, this round also introduces the first ceramic balloons, and the problem with them is that their outer layer takes 10 damage to pop, but it only awards you with $1. This means that even if you get lucky and get 20 pops from your road spikes, you can only pop 2 ceramic balloons, which means you're spending $25 to get $2 back. And also you can see I just barely ended up having to restart this round because I messed up at the end. But that issue with the ceramics taking more damage is only going to get a lot worse once I have to face the first Moab, because that takes 200 damage to pop and then it drops 4 ceramics. So in order to get 5 pops, which would be popping the Moab and then popping the 4 ceramic balloons into 8 rainbows, you have to deal a total of 240 damage. But since you're only popping 5 balloons, you're only going to earn $5. But in order to do that much damage with road spikes, you would have to buy 17 piles, assuming that you get average luck and 40% of them can do 20 damage instead of 10. This is because, think about it, 17 times 0.4 leaves you with 6.8, so we can round that to 7. That means you would get 7 piles with 20 pops, and 7 times 20 is 140. That leaves you with 10 piles that are each doing 10 damage each, and just to be clear, pops and damage are interchangeable, and then 10 times 10 is 100, plus that 140 will give you 240 damage exactly, which would be enough to pop those 5 balloons. But since each pile of road spikes costs $30 on medium mode, and you're buying 17 piles, you're going to be spending $510, which is literally more than 100 times what you're earning back. So every Moab is going to cost an additional $500 to pop, plus whatever you lose from popping those smaller balloons. But after a couple minutes, it was time. I had to face the Moab, and I have to say, for one, it got destroyed faster than I expected, but for two, I was really surprised that I didn't have to sell any farms on this round, especially because I wasted some money on spikes, buying too many at the end, and also buying some on that loop that ended up not getting used, because again, the Moab popped a lot faster than I expected. And there's a reason why that happened. I had completely forgotten that the Monkey Lab upgrade Big Balloon Sabotage allows all Moab class balloons to have 30% fewer health. So instead of having to do 200 damage like I thought, I actually had to do 140. This definitely makes it not quite as bad because now I can do 180 total damage, which will let me buy a few less road spikes, but still I am going to be losing a ton of money every time I do have to face a Moab, and I can only imagine what will happen with the BFB. Now my goal at this point and moving forward is to just hold on to my farms as long as possible, although I might already be failing that because I'm running out of money very quickly on round 47, and I'm also having trouble clicking fast enough to keep up with all the balloons, so they keep on reaching the banana peels, which of course I don't want to happen, but I'm using my trackpad, so I guess I'm going to have to unplug my mic, plug in my mouse to do this, and then go between the two. But when I loaded back into the game, I realized I had made a grave mistake, which is the fact that I bought road spikes before the round started last time, and now both the road spikes and my money are gone. So yeah, I have even less to work with than I did before. Just lovely. But in all seriousness, that means I'm gonna have to sell another farm already, and I'd be really surprised if I even end up beating medium mode. But since this track is designed in a way where there's a part that the balloons have to travel on 4 different times, I just kept on spamming spikes in that spot, and then I was able to clean things up and get through this round. But on round 48, I'm already running out of money again, so chances are I'm gonna have to sell yet another farm. And at this point, I'm basically on life support because I'm having to sell a farm every single round. Round 49 was the same thing. I had to sell yet another farm, bringing me down to my last one. And this is also when I realized I definitely should have sold the farms at the bottom first, so that way I wouldn't have to deal with this nonsense so much, because yeah, this is getting really old having to reset because these peels keep on hitting a few balloons. And the thing that makes it tougher is I'm trying to wait before I sell the farm because, like I said earlier, I want to let the farm generate a bit of income first. So what ends up happening is I eventually run out of money before I sell the farm, then I have to click on it and sell it and go back to putting down road spikes, and by that point, it seems like the balloons have just made it too far because the ceramics are absolutely annihilating my road spikes since they take so much extra damage to pop. So maybe it's about time for me to get rid of this banana farmer, honestly. But first, I wanted to try one last thing. Gamer clicking. Well, normal people know it as jitter clicking, but doing this allowed me to easily put down enough road spikes to take out all the ceramics with a bunch left over. but there wasn't enough left over for me to actually not have to sell my last farm, which means this entire effort was in vain anyways. And it also means I'm probably not going to be able to beat round 50 because I'm going into it with less than $2,000 and no source of income. I did my best with what I had left, and I sold a banana farmer so that way I could just allow any balloons to leak, but there's way too many ceramics to even have any chance of defeating this round. And it's not like I can try again, because whatever amount of money I have is going to be the same every time. And there's no way I'm going to get luck that's so much different that I'm able to just get through. So unfortunately, this run is already dead. On my next run, I played on this map called Nazca Lines, which allowed me to actually put the banana farmer in a spot where it will not touch the track for once. And this is going to be pretty useful because now I don't have to worry about the balloons reaching a certain point and then me having to reset because of it. That was pretty annoying. So I also try to put it in a spot where it could cover a decent amount of the land, and then hopefully I could fit several farms in its range. But I think if I have to, I can put a second banana farmer right up here, and that should just barely avoid touching the track as well. But this map definitely is shorter than express shipping, so I'm gonna have less time to place road spikes. And I also did something stupid here. Since two paths merged into one, I need to put the road spikes a little bit further up. But this also got me thinking about something. Since I have so many extra lives, I don't have to buy road spikes in these early rounds. I can just let a bunch of balloons leak and focus on my farming, and therefore have a huge monetary advantage later on. Now last time on round 15, I had 1-2-0 farm, and I wasn't very close to affording my second farm yet, while this time I had, well, a 2-0 farm and a 1-0 farm, but that is still an advantage. And a big part of the reason why I didn't have more farms at this point is because I really only had enough lives to tank until round 10, and then I started having to use road spikes. Now thankfully I did have 10 free piles saved up as well, so that saved me another $300 this round. But yeah, I mean, obviously at this point it's going to probably be pretty similar to before, and I'm just going to hope that the difference of having that extra farm early on allows me to make it a little bit further at least. Otherwise this would just be kind of embarrassing. I also had a new challenge presented to me, the lead balloons, because now I don't really have a good way to pop them anymore, and I ended up failing the first time on round 30, which is not helped by the fact that I didn't leave myself any lives to work with. I literally have 4. So I developed a system where I would wait for the leads to reach a certain point on the monkey's arms down here, if you look at the bottom right, and then I would place the bombs in the center of its 2 hands. This seemed to work really well for popping them all, and you'll also notice my farms are a lot stronger this time than they were before, so having that early advantage really is actually starting to pay off. On round 34, I knew I could afford to finally get a 4-2 banana farm, which produces more income than the 9-2-0s I had. However, I can also do a trick where I start the round with a 3-0, then I upgrade it to a 4-2, and what will happen is this will actually produce 13 crates instead of 5 for this round, meaning that for a single round, I will get 2.6 rounds worth of income generation, which allowed me to afford a couple more 2-0 farms during this round as well, even though I actually wasted some money on road spikes at the end. It really is amazing being able to farm this much, but I'll tell you, the map definitely presents some challenge when you have a bunch of lead balloons and other balloons around them, because you have to just set things up just right so you can pop all the leads and then also get all the other balloons at the end. And then of course I die from being too stingy with the spikes anyways. But the extra effort on this shorter map definitely is paying off, because on round 41 I was already buying my second 4-2 factory, and then I realized I forgot to do the trick where you get extra crates, and thankfully my monkey lab also allows me to sell towers for 99% of their value, so I am going to lose around $240 selling this, but that's less than the value of one extra crate, so I'm not really too worried about it, although it is still definitely frustrating because it was an avoidable mistake. But now you can actually see the two of them side by side, or I guess up and down, with the top one being a normal factory producing 5 per round and the bottom producing 13. And you can see it actually lines up pretty well. The bottom one produced 2 and then almost a third one before the first one could even produce 1. But I just barely got by with 4-2-0 farms on this round, because you can see I was about to run out of money and just barely had enough to pop those last zebra balloons, thankfully. But on round 45, I was already getting my 3rd factory, whereas last time I was struggling to even farm at all. I'm just absolutely amazed by the difference that one farm early on really has made so far. It's astronomical to me. But with that being said, I now have to face the Moab, and you can see, because of the fact that all the farms instantly generate their income, just how much money I'm really making. But also, I'm easily profiting while fighting a Moab now, whereas before I was struggling and having to sell farms. And by round 50, instead of having to sell off my last farm, I was sitting with more income generation than what I was spending on road spikes still. And really the hardest part about getting through this round was just placing them down quickly enough to keep up with the ceramics. But now that I'm past round 50, I'm gonna start losing more money from my road spikes because your income generation from balloons gets cut in half. So instead of earning $1 per pop, you earn half a dollar, or I guess $1 every 2 pops really. And I have to say the jitter clicking definitely was starting to burn even at this point. And by round 59, I had to start placing the road spikes before I started the round because for one, that's just going to make things easier, but for two, this round actually has a bunch of camo leads, so I did have to switch back to the explosive pineapples, which I haven't had to do for a while. And now that I've cleared this round, it's time to face something truly insane, the BFB. Although I have to say I was a bit underwhelmed by its strength honestly. For some reason I guess I thought it was going to be more difficult to pop, but I probably shouldn't complain about something that's a good thing. And my cockiness led to me underestimating the Moabs, but thankfully I was able to pull out a pro gamer move and barely clutch up against an entire Moab that was near the end. Now if you know anything about round 63, you know the balloons are punishing me even more for underestimating their BFB, because now I had to spend what felt like 2 minutes placing road spikes all over the track, because not only does this round have something like 16,000 damage worth of ceramics to pop, but also it has leads the entire time, so I can't keep on placing road spikes, but instead I have to spend the entire round placing exploding pineapples. Man, I would have been so mad if that third wave got through, but thankfully I was smart enough to place some extra spikes right at the end, and okay, we're gonna get through this round, but now it's only 2 more rounds left to defeat medium mode. And if you haven't guessed yet, the part 2 is going to be me attempting hard mode, but that is going to be a carpal tunnel endeavor that I am not looking forward to yet. So if you haven't liked the video and you're still watching, please drop a like on it. Although I felt pretty good about myself being able to click fast enough to beat round 64 without placing any spikes before it started. But with the anticipation of round 65 having a significantly higher RBE, I wasn't going to be trying that again. At first it starts off with balloons that are pretty easy to keep up with, but they ramp up in difficulty pretty quickly, and the round ends with 4 Moabs and 2 BFBs. Thankfully though, when it seemed like the spikes were starting to run low, I was able to take advantage of just how slowly the Moabs and especially the BFBs move to place way more down without having to completely destroy my wrist doing so. And by the time they had finally meandered over, there was more than enough firepower on the track to completely shred them into nothing. And there it is. That's medium mode defeated with nothing but road items. Somehow, some way, that one farm really made the biggest difference ever. And if you want to see me beat this on hard mode, I'm going to do it anyways, but again, please drop a like on the video for my suffering.